Hi, this is Stephen Clift with eDemocracy.org talking about PublicMeetings.Info. A number of months ago I was thinking, wouldn't it be nice if I could simply type in my address, a few keywords, and then be told about the public meetings in my local community that mattered to me before decisions were taken, when I could actually have a greater influence on the process. Now the reality is, in Minneapolis where I live, there are about 10 different jurisdictions: the city, the county, the school district, the park board, the soil and water conservation district. They all have different systems. And in one scenario, I could set it up so that I could go out, if I had the resources, to scrape the data from these different elected official representative sites and aggregate it into a site that would allow me to interact with public meetings in a way that related to my life. And this is a key thing, is that public meetings, despite all the online politicking that happens, are very much a cornerstone today, and will remain so for many years, of local democracy. If you can't be there, or if you can't get your input in before the decision is taken, your influence is marginal. So we were interested, and I'm interested, in how do you make public meetings far more accessible to the greater number of citizens online. Now, a couple of things about this is that while we could go and scrape this data and sort of come up with a public data set, open data set for Minneapolis, or Minneapolis and St. Paul, it's not very cost effective. And so, stepping back, we've been thinking about, well, how could we make it more organic? How could we make it so that more governments, local governments, and the companies that serve them on the web, how could we make it so that meeting information was as accessible as weather information or other types of data, which often has a local connection to it? So what I would like to see is an exploration of the open standards that we might require or could use to make data easier to aggregate about public meetings, so that not just some standalone site or some government site could provide this information, but that many, including local media sites, government sites, activist sites, could make meetings much more accessible. Now, take it a step further. What might this lead to? Well, I would like to see a day where not only can I be notified about public meetings that matter to me, I might have the chance to comment on specific agenda items. And not just comment as in raise the loudest voices, but also allow myself and others to rate or further comment on the comments of others. And if I were an elected official, what I'd be most interested in are the opinions, perhaps in digest form, at least a notification that my constituents have submitted their opinions to the public meeting system, and to receive that input before the vote is taken. Now, it's not to replace the in-person meeting, it's to complement, to supplement, and to actually make it so that people can participate at any time from anywhere in real, everyday democracy. So PublicMeetings.Info is an effort of eDemocracy.org in partnership with the eCitizen Foundation. We received some funding from the Ford Foundation for an effort we call Participation 3.0. And the idea is to explore the next generation of online civic engagement. In addition to PublicMeetings.Info, we have an effort related called Democracy Map, which is a system to help you find out who represents you right down to dog catcher, but oriented also toward creating an open data set, starting with governments and simply the web address that ties to them. And many governments, the township, very small, special district level, there is no source of data on where their websites are, other than a good Google search. But we want to make it really built into every time you see that government unit's name, it could be just one click away from who the heck is that unit of government. We also have a project called Inclusive Social Media, where we're doing work to reach out and work with immigrant and lower income neighborhoods in Minneapolis and St. Paul with our Issues Forum model, which is the online town hall, neighbor to neighbor connecting. So these projects are all part of Participation 3.0, PublicMeetings.Info. Where will that go from here? We're having an input meeting webinar. Will be recorded, so if you're watching this after the meeting, please look at PublicMeeting.Info, look for the link to the webinar. The idea is to scope this out, move toward drafting a standard, and really, eDemocracy.org, we see ourselves as a convener around this idea, and we're very open to where it might go. And we basically want to start off by saying, is it a good idea? Should public meeting data be out there in standard formats? Would people or would different organizations take that data and aggregate it for others? But ultimately, can we make meetings, public meetings, more accessible, more relevant to people, and add online input in a way which is dramatically different than the anonymous online news commenting and the other types of commenting we see, which are basically virtual pitchforks compared to the decorum that we would expect of our governing processes when people sit and testify in front of a local council. Not always full of decorum, but for the most part, most meetings have decorum, and we need to think about how we make that type of input possible and viable, so it isn't just the loudest voices that are heard online, but actually everyone's voice has a greater opportunity to be heard in a way that's constructive in the governance process. So take a look at PublicMeetings.Info, and from there you can find the online working group, you can find various documents about the idea, and most importantly, you can get involved. If you think this is a good idea, you may be the person who watches this who says, I'm going to take that idea further, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to experiment with some technology, I'm going to do some work with some data, and together we'll make meetings more accessible for the 21st century. Thank you.